A millionaire in disguise ordered coffee at his own bar and froze when he heard 3 words from the black waitress. "We don't serve people like that here," Rachel whispered to her colleague behind the counter, loud enough for the black man in simple clothes to hear as he waited to place his order at the elegant downtown brew cafe. Marcus Williams, 34, owner of a chain of 47 coffee shops across the East Coast, felt every word like a stab in the heart. He was there in disguise, wearing faded jeans and a plain t-shirt to investigate rumors of discrimination at one of his most profitable locations. What was supposed to be a simple routine check turned into the most devastating moment of his business career. The blonde waitress continued to arrange cups with deliberately slow movements, completely ignoring his presence. Marcus watched as she promptly served a white couple who had arrived after him, offering warm smiles and detailed menu recommendations. "Excuse me," Marcus said politely, approaching the counter. Rachel rolled her eyes and sighed loudly. "What do you want?" At 34, Marcus never imagined he would witness this kind of treatment in his own establishment. The son of a cleaning lady and a mechanic, he had built his empire from a small coffee cart at the university, always believing that he offered equal opportunities to everyone. "An American coffee, please?" he asked, keeping his voice calm despite his growing anger. "We're having a problem with the system today. We only accept cash." Rachel lied blatantly, knowing that the man probably didn't carry much cash. Marcus had exactly 847s in his wallet, plus unlimited black cards. But he decided to test how far the situation would go. "How much is it?" $12. The normal price was $4.50. Marcus knew every item on the menu, which he had approved himself. Behind his calm exterior, his mind was working quickly. He had installed a discreet security camera system just 3 weeks earlier after receiving an anonymous tip about questionable behavior at this particular branch. What he hadn't expected was to discover that prejudice was ingrained in the culture of the place. "No problem," he replied, pulling out a $20 bill. Rachel took the money with disdain, as if she were touching something contaminated. "Plain coffee, no frills," she muttered to the barista. "To go." The barista, a young man named Tony, hesitated for a moment. Marcus noticed a flash of discomfort on the young man's face, as if he knew something was wrong, but didn't have the courage to confront his colleague. While he waited, Marcus observed every detail: the way other employees avoided eye contact with him, how Rachel whispered to a colleague about these kinds of people who were lowering the standards of the place, how she deliberately took her time preparing his order while serving 3 other customers who had arrived after him. Rachel finally brought the coffee in a cheap, disposable cup, unlike the elegant porcelain cups he saw other customers using. No saucer, no napkin, none of the pampering that was part of the premium experience Downtown Brew was known for. "Next," she shouted, completely ignoring his thank you. Marcus stood still for a few seconds, absorbing the magnitude of what he had witnessed in his own business, with employees he paid, using protocols he had established to ensure excellence in service. At that moment, a decision crystallized in his mind. It wouldn't just be a dismissal or a warning. It would be a lesson that Rachel and anyone like her would never forget. Leaving the cafe, Marcus pulled out his cell phone and made a call. "James, it's me. I need you to come to Downtown Brew now. Bring the legal team and the new diversity policy documents. We have a situation that will require our full attention." As he walked down the sidewalk, Marcus smiled for the first time since entering the cafe. Rachel had no idea that she had just humiliated the man who signed her paychecks, but she would find out very soon. If you are enjoying this story of justice and transformation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple cup of coffee would become the catalyst for a revolution that would change not only an establishment, but the lives of dozens of people. James Peterson, a lawyer and Marcus's best friend since college, arrived at Downtown Brew exactly 40 minutes after the call. tall, fair-skinned, and with a confident posture of someone who frequented federal courts, he represented everything Marcus knew Rachel would respect. "What's the problem?" James asked, observing the normal movement of the cafe. Marcus discreetly pointed to Rachel, who was serving a Latino family with obvious irritation. "Watch." The scene repeated itself like a rehearsed script. Rachel deliberately took her time writing down the order, sighed loudly at each question about the menu, and when the small child spilled sugar on the table, she commented loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Some people don't know how to behave in civilized places." The child's mother looked down, embarrassed, while the father quickly cleaned the table and whispered apologies. They left without finishing their coffee, taking with them the wounded dignity that Marcus knew all too well. "Jesus Christ," James muttered. "She does that openly." "It's worse than we thought," Marcus replied, remembering his own experience an hour earlier, "and I'm sure it's not an isolated case." Marcus had grown up witnessing this kind of treatment directed at his mother, Donna Williams, a strong woman who cleaned offices in the early hours of the morning to support her son on her own. He remembered waiting for her in elegant lobbies, watching as building managers treated her as if she were invisible, as secretaries spoke to her in a tone they reserved only for those they considered inferior. "My son will be different," she always said, returning home exhausted but determined. "He will have the respect I never had." At 19, Marcus had started out selling coffee from a makeshift cart on the university campus. While his classmates complained about classes or planned parties, he woke up at 4 in the morning to prepare drinks and save every penny. His first store was a 3-square-meter space he shared with a laundromat. Money was tight, but his vision was clear: to create spaces where all people were treated with dignity, regardless of their appearance or background. For 15 years, Marcus had methodically built his empire. Café Brew, his first store, became a benchmark for inclusive service. Employees were trained not only to make good coffee, but to treat each customer as if they were the most important person of the day. "Respect has no color, social class, or accent," was the phrase printed in all of his employees' manuals. But now, watching Rachel systematically humiliate non-white customers in his own establishment, Marcus felt he was being betrayed by the very values he had built his entire company defending. "She needs to go today," James said, adjusting his tie knot. "We have legal grounds for termination for cause." "No," Marcus shook his head, his eyes fixed on Rachel, who was now laughing with a colleague about the kind of clientele that had been showing up lately. "Firing her is too easy. She would just find another job and continue to be exactly the same person." James knew that look. It was the same one Marcus had when he decided to expand his first store, the same one when he faced big chains trying to buy him out, the same one when he turned down million-dollar offers to maintain complete control over his business vision. "What do you have in mind?" Marcus picked up his phone and showed James a series of screenshots he had discreetly captured. Rachel posting stories on Instagram during work hours, selfies with hashtags like #worklife and #coffeevibes, while mistreating customers behind the counter. "She documents her own hypocrisy," Marcus said, scrolling through the images. "Look at this photo, her posing in her downtown Brew uniform. Caption talking about loving to serve special people every day." James let out a low whistle. "Posted at exactly the same time you were being humiliated in here. I need more evidence. I want her to completely dig her own grave before we act." At that moment, Rachel approached a table where an elderly African-American couple was carefully perusing the menu. Marcus watched as she stood impatiently beside the table, tapping her pen on her notepad while they made their decision. "Are you going to order, or did you just come to take up space?" she said, her voice thick with barely concealed disdain. The elderly man looked up, surprised. "Excuse me, young lady, we're still deciding. It's busy today. If you don't know what you want, maybe you should come back another day." The man's wife gently touched his arm. "Let's go, dear. We don't want to bother anyone." Marcus felt his blood boil. That couple could have been his own grandparents, people who had faced decades of overt discrimination and now in 2024 still had to deal with disguised versions of the same toxicity. James. His voice came out low, controlled, but laden with a determination that made the lawyer sit up straight in his chair. I want you to hire a private investigator. I need to know everything about Rachel Thompson. Professional history, social media, social circle, everything. Marcus, this may be going too far. Too far is what she did to that elderly couple. Too far is charging me 3 times the normal price because she thought I wouldn't know the difference. Marcus put his phone away, his eyes still fixed on Rachel. She wanted to play games with me. Now she's going to find out why she should never have underestimated a man who built an empire from a coffee cart. James made quick notes in his notebook. And once we have all the information, Marcus smiled for the first time since he had walked into the cafe that morning. Then she'll find out who really runs this place. But when that happens, it won't just be a dismissal. It will be a lesson that she and anyone like her will never forget. What Rachel couldn't imagine was that her cruel laughter and prejudiced comments were being carefully cataloged by someone who had enough resources to turn her casual arrogance into the very tool of her professional and social destruction. 3 days later, Marcus was sitting in his office in downtown Los Angeles, reviewing a 40-page report on Rachel Thompson that would impress any experienced investigator with its level of detail. She not only documents her own prejudice on social media, said David Martinez, the private investigator James had hired, pointing to chronologically organized printouts. She has practically created a manual on how to be discriminatory and still feel superior about it. Marcus flipped through the pages, each screenshot more revolting than the last. Facebook posts celebrating quality customers at Downtown Brew, Instagram photos posing with white employees with captions about working with people who truly understand excellence. TikTok stories subtly mocking the accents and clothing of non-white customers. There's more, David continued. She runs a private WhatsApp group called Elite Service Squad with employees from other luxury establishments in the area. I got access through an inside source. Marcus opened the audio files David had compiled. Rachel and her colleagues exchanged tips on how to discourage undesirable clientele without sounding explicitly racist. Techniques such as deliberately delaying service, charging inflated prices to test whether the customer belonged in the environment, or simply inventing non-existent problems with the payment system. Jesus, Marcus muttered, listening to Rachel's own voice, explaining how some people just don't fit in with the premium experience we offer. James entered the office carrying 2 cups of coffee. How's the dossier on our favorite discriminator? Devastating, Marcus replied, closing his laptop. But I need more than social media evidence. I want to catch her in action again, but this time with everything officially documented. David adjusted his glasses, consulting his notes. There's something else you need to know. Rachel doesn't act alone. I've identified at least 4 other employees at Downtown Brew who follow the same pattern, including Jennifer Walsh, the shift supervisor. The information hit Marcus like a punch in the stomach. The problem wasn't just one dishonest employee. It was an entire culture of discrimination that had infiltrated his own establishment. Jennifer was there the day I was humiliated, Marcus recalled aloud. I saw her watching and doing nothing to intervene. James placed his cup on the table with more force than necessary. That means we have an active conspiracy of discrimination. Legally, it's much more serious. And much more personal, Marcus added, remembering how he had personally hired Jennifer 2 years earlier. Impressed by her resume and references, she had sworn to share the company's inclusive values, looking him straight in the eye as she signed the contract, promising to treat all customers with equal dignity. David continued his account. It gets worse. They have a system of discrete signals to identify when to apply the special protocol to specific customers. Rachel uses a code in the ordering system that automatically adds extra fees for, well, you get the picture. Marcus felt anger boiling in his veins, but he forced himself to maintain the strategic calm that had led him to success. I want a full operation. Cameras, recorders, witnesses. I'm going back there as a customer, and this time I want every second documented. Marcus, James hesitated. Maybe it would be better to send someone else. You've already been seen there. That's exactly why it has to be me, Marcus replied, a plan forming clearly in his mind. Rachel saw me as an easy victim. Now I'm going to give her the opportunity to bury herself completely. 2 hours later, Marcus was once again dressed as an ordinary worker, but this time he carried discreet recording equipment hidden in his backpack and a tiny camera disguised as a button on his shirt. David and 2 assistants were strategically positioned in the cafe as regular customers, each equipped to capture different angles of the operation. When Marcus entered downtown Brew at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the lunch rush was over, but Rachel was there organizing the counter while chatting with Jennifer about plans for the weekend. "Look who's back," Rachel whispered to her supervisor, loud enough for Marcus to hear. "Some people never learn." Jennifer arched her eyebrows, studying Marcus with thinly veiled disdain. Wasn't that $12 coffee enough to keep him away? Marcus approached the counter with measured steps, knowing that every word was being recorded in high definition. "Good afternoon. I'd like an Americano, please." Rachel exchanged a knowing glance with Jennifer before responding, "Sure. Today we have a special promotion for special customers, $15. "Has the price gone up since yesterday?" Marcus asked innocently. "Inflation?" Jennifer replied with a fake smile. "You understand how economics works, right?" The question carried such obvious condescension that David, positioned 3 tables back, had to struggle not to react visibly. The camera on his cell phone captured every expression of superiority on the 2 women's faces. Marcus paid the $15 without complaint, watching as Rachel typed specific codes into the system that David had identified as part of the special protocol. "To go, I imagine," Rachel said, automatically picking up a disposable cup instead of the elegant porcelain cups he saw other customers receiving. "Actually, I'll drink it here," Marcus replied calmly. The response clearly annoyed her. "Our tables are reserved for customers who place full orders." Marcus looked around, noticing at least 6 empty tables. "I see several available." Jennifer approached, her posture taking on a more authoritative tone. "Sir, if you don't intend to order food, we really need you to free up the space for other customers." At that moment, a white couple entered and immediately sat down at a table near the window, ordering only 2 plain coffees. Rachel served them with warm smiles, offering the dessert menu and asking if they preferred porcelain or tempered glass cups. The hypocrisy was so blatant that Marcus almost smiled. They were digging their own grave, creating irrefutable evidence of active discrimination while believing they were simply maintaining the establishment standards. "I understand perfectly," Marcus said, taking his coffee in a cheap, disposable cup. "Thank you for the educational experience." As he walked toward the door, he heard Rachel comment to Jennifer, "Some places just aren't for some people. It's nice when they figure that out for themselves." Outside, Marcus took a deep breath, discreetly removing his recording equipment. In less than 15 minutes, he had collected enough evidence to destroy not only Rachel and Jennifer, but to expose the entire discriminatory system they had created. David approached minutes later, his face a mixture of anger and professional admiration. "We got everything: crystal clear audio, video from multiple angles, timestamps from the payment system showing the discriminatory codes. It's a closed case." "We're not done yet," Marcus said, pulling out his cell phone. "Now comes the part they'll never forget." James answered on the first ring. "How did it go?" "Better than we expected. Prepare the legal documents and schedule a meeting with the entire downtown Brew team for tomorrow at 9 o'clock a.m. And James, Marcus paused, watching through the window as Rachel and Jennifer continued to laugh, completely oblivious to the hurricane that was about to hit them. Tell our PR team too, because when I'm done with them, this story is going to become a case study on why discrimination doesn't pay. Rachel wanted to play with special codes and protocols. Marcus smiled for the first time in days. Tomorrow she'll find out what happens when someone plays the game against someone who really knows the rules. The next morning, Downtown Brew was closed for the emergency meeting. Marcus arrived at 8:45, wearing his best Armani suit and carrying a leather briefcase that contained the professional future of Rachel Thompson and her accomplices. 17 employees crowded into the main area of the cafe, whispering theories about the reason for the urgent call. Rachel stood in the center of the group, laughing confidently as she speculated about possible promotions or year-end bonuses. "I bet they're going to announce an expansion of the chain," she said to Jennifer, adjusting her hair with study gestures. "I always knew my work would be recognized." Marcus entered, accompanied by James, David Martinez, and an elegant woman whom no one recognized, Dr. Patricia Williams, a labor rights specialist he had hired to legally document every second of what was about to happen. "Good morning, everyone," Marcus said, his voice echoing in the sudden silence. "My name is Marcus Williams, and I am the owner of this coffee shop chain." The shock was instantaneous. Rachel felt the blood drain from her face while Jennifer visibly choked. Other employees murmured in surprise, but those who had treated all customers with respect seemed relieved to finally meet the boss. "Over the past few days," Marcus continued, turning on a projector that David had installed, "I have conducted a personal investigation into the work environment at this location. What I have discovered is absolutely unacceptable." The first image projected onto the white wall was a screenshot of the private WhatsApp group, Elite Service Squad. Rachel's messages mocking undesirable customers appeared in bold letters for all to see. "Rachel Thompson, you run this group where you instruct employees of luxury establishments on how to discriminate against customers based on their racial appearance," Marcus declared, his voice calm but laden with unquestionable authority. Rachel tried to protest. "Mr. Williams, this is a misunderstanding." "Silence!" The word cut through the air like a blade. Marcus clicked to the next image, Rachel posing for selfies during work hours while mistreating customers behind the counter. "This photo was posted at the exact moment you charged me $15 for a $4.50 coffee, inventing a special promotion because you thought I wouldn't know the difference." The silence was deafening. Marcus could see honest employees processing the revelation that they had worked alongside systematic discrimination. Tony, the barista who had hesitated to follow Rachel's prejudiced instructions, shook his head in disgust. "Jennifer Walsh," Marcus turned to the supervisor, "you not only allowed this behavior, you actively participated in it." The next series of images showed Jennifer instructing other employees on the special protocol codes in the payment system that added extra fees for specific customers. "You two created an environment where racial discrimination was not only tolerated but systematized and taught to new employees." Rachel finally found her voice, but it was shaking. "You can't prove any of this. He was undercover, lying about who he was." Marcus smiled for the first time since he had entered the cafe. "Dr. Williams, can you explain to Miss Thompson her legal rights in this situation?" The lawyer stood up and consulted her notes. "Under federal civil rights law, business owners have not only the right, but the legal obligation to investigate discrimination on their property. Using undercover agents to document illegal activities is perfectly legal when done by the business owner." Rachel and Jennifer exchanged desperate glances. "Furthermore," Dr. Williams continued, "all evidence collected is admissible in court, including recordings made in commercial spaces where there is no expectation of privacy." Marcus turned on a small speaker connected to his cell phone. Rachel's voice echoed through the cafe. Some people just don't fit in with the premium experience we offer. This recording was made yesterday afternoon when you humiliated me for the second time, believing I was just another victim of the systematic discrimination you have created. Jennifer began to cry, realizing the magnitude of her situation. Please, Mr. Williams, I can explain. There is no explanation, Marcus interrupted. There are only consequences. David approached with official documents. Rachel Thompson and Jennifer Walsh, you are terminated for cause, effective immediately. Your behavior violated not only company policy, but federal civil rights laws. Rachel stood up abruptly, her arrogance returning in one last desperate act. You can't do this. I'm going to sue you for harassment. You're going to what? Marcus interrupted her, his voice now laden with all the authority he had built up over 15 years of successful business. You're going to tell a judge how you systematically discriminated against customers based on skin color. You're going to explain how you created secret codes to steal money from people you thought wouldn't have the resources to fight back? Reality finally hit Rachel like an avalanche. Not only had she lost her job, but there was enough evidence to destroy any chance of ever working at a reputable establishment again. Dr. Williams, Marcus said, can you explain the additional legal implications? Certainly. Systematic discrimination can result in civil lawsuits from each affected customer, federal fines, and depending on the extent of the documented damages, criminal liability for civil rights violations. Jennifer collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Rachel remained standing, but Marcus could see her hands shaking as the magnitude of her situation became clear. Your personal belongings will be mailed to you, David informed them, handing boxes to both women. You have 10 minutes to leave the property. Marcus watched as the two women who had systematically humiliated innocent customers gathered their belongings in devastating silence. The arrogance was completely gone, replaced by the panic of realizing they had destroyed their own careers through their casual cruelty. To the rest of the team, Marcus announced, you have witnessed today that discrimination will not be tolerated in any of my establishments. Those who remained upright during this situation will be rewarded. Those who participated in any form of prejudice have a choice: immediate change in behavior or seek employment elsewhere. Tony approached, visibly relieved. Mr. Williams, I always felt uncomfortable with what was happening, but I didn't know how to report it. Now you know, Marcus replied. And we have created a confidential system to ensure that situations like this never happen again. As Rachel and Jennifer walked out the back door, Marcus felt a deep satisfaction that came not from cruelty but from justice. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't stooped to their level. He had simply allowed their own actions to destroy them. In the center of that cafe, where discrimination disguised as standards of excellence had once poisoned every interaction, a new reality was taking shape, like a symphony finally finding its harmony after years of dissonant notes, proving that true excellence knows no color, social class, or limitations, imposed by those who confuse prejudice with superiority. 6 months later, Downtown Brew had become a national benchmark for inclusion and excellence in customer service. Marcus was on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine as CEO of the Year for his revolutionary corporate diversity practices. Tony, promoted to manager, led a team of 15 employees who treated every customer with genuine respect. Sales increased by 340% after the transformation, proving that dignity and profit went hand in hand. Rachel was unable to find another job in the hospitality industry. Her old discriminatory posts went viral on social media, making her persona non grata at any reputable establishment. Jennifer moved to another state after civil lawsuits from customers she had humiliated. Dr. Williams had turned the case into a legal study on systemic discrimination presented at universities across the country. The Williams Protocol became the industry standard for identifying and eliminating institutional bias. Marcus created a scholarship fund for young minority entrepreneurs, financed by the extraordinary profits of the revamped Downtown Brew. The best revenge against prejudice is the success they think is impossible, became his business motto. On the cafe wall, a discreet plaque honored Donna Williams. To my mother, who taught me that dignity is not negotiable and respect is earned. Rachel had tried to destroy a man based on the color of his skin, but ended up destroying only herself. Marcus learned that true revenge is not retaliating for the harm suffered. It is achieving success that your enemies could never imagine. Have you ever faced unfair discrimination? How did you react? Leave your story in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more cases of justice that prove that sometimes the universe just needs our help to settle the score.